Welcome to Consumer Warrior. I'm here with attorney John Skiba. Give us an overview. What's going on? What's on your mind for 2025?
Yeah, we're seeing a pretty significant increase in the number of Chapter 7s that are being filed. And so, I think it's helpful. And that's what I wanted to do with this video is just kind of rapid fire some of the benefits to the Chapter 7 and some things you need to be aware of before you jump into it. Sometimes I see this a lot in my practice in Arizona, in my law practice, where sometimes people are really anxious to get into a 7. Some people are really cautious. I think kind of taking a little bit of a step back, having a middle road approach to it, making sure you have all the information you need before you jump into it. So that's my whole purpose here, is to talk about some of those pros and cons.
Great.
The biggest pro, which is an obvious one, is for debt relief. That there is no better tool for eliminating debt than Chapter 7. Chapter 7 eliminates most unsecured debts, where there's no collateral attached to it. Credit cards, medical bills, personal loans, those kind of things go away completely. And even with secured debts like car loans and home loans, generally, if you keep the payments up, you can keep the car. Or, like I was just talking to someone recently who had like an RV that they were really upside down in. They owed like 80 grand on it. They couldn't afford it. In a Chapter 7, you can surrender assets like that, and then you don't owe anything on it going forward. You give up the vehicle, but you don't owe anything.
So if you owed 80,000 and the RV was worth 40, on a Chapter 7, you can just give it back and walk away.
Yeah. Outside of bankruptcy, if a vehicle's repossessed, like an RV like that, the bank will go sell it at auction. They'll get a fraction of what it's worth. They'll pay, towards the balance, but then you get sued for this. They call it a deficiency balance. The bankruptcy can eliminate deficiency balances. So if that's already happened to people, we can still get rid of it.
Amazing.
Or you can just surrender it through the bankruptcy process. The bank will come pick it up, and then the debt goes away, just like a credit card or anything else.
Right.
So,
great.
I would say we can throw in one of the kind of the negative side. The negative thing with the Chapter 7 is that you can lose assets. Now, most people that file Chapter 7 don't really lose much of anything. But the kind of the trade-off is, hey, we get rid of all this debt, but then the bankruptcy court or the bankruptcy trustee, to be more specific, will look at everything you've disclosed as far as your documents, and they will let you know if there's assets that are not protected by state exemption laws. So like a lot of people have heard like the homestead exemption in most states that protects equity in your home. There's exemptions for most things, for cars, retirement accounts, household goods, all that kind of stuff. What they will look to see is if there's any assets that you have that are not protected by an exemption. And if so, they can take that asset, sell it, and make a distribution to your creditors.
Give me an example of a non-exempt asset.
I mean, there's things that are in most states are non-exempt. If you have a boat that's paid for, typically they're going to seize it, sell it. But also, usually with the exemptions, there is some limits to how much you can protect. So, for example, in Arizona, where I practice, you can have a vehicle with up to $15,000 of equity in it. If you have more than that, the bankruptcy court can sell the vehicle, write you a check for the $15,000 of equity that's protected under the law, and then distribute the rest of the money to your creditors. So that's the kind of one we see. I mean, we see it sometimes with people who have large amounts of money, like in a checking account or like in a brokerage account. Those are things that an attorney's going to look at ahead of time and try to help you to avoid losing. But those are the types of assets that they typically try to go after.
Yeah. Okay, more pros and cons.
Probably one of the biggest ones for most clients, and why most clients I deal with like Chapter 7, is it's relatively quick. It's usually about a 4, sometimes 5-month process, which might sound long, but that's smoking fast for a federal proceeding to do anything. In 4 to 5 months, you can actually be done with the case, discharged, the debt's eliminated, and then really start progressing. So it's that, particularly with Chapter 7, we talk about this fresh start that comes with the bankruptcy. You get that. If you file a case 4 months down the road, it's discharged and you can start, on the road to recovering your credit, which, surprising to a lot of people, that happens more quickly than they anticipate.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, Chapter 7, it's going to stay on your credit report for 10 years. But I mean, you're eligible under FHA, under VA to get a mortgage loan, 2 years after a discharge. So I always tell people, I don't sugarcoat it. It's going to obviously impact your credit. You're going to recover more quickly than most people anticipate. So I would say that's probably that's one of the main things that people like about Chapter 7s, is that it's a relatively short process.
Talk about the car, your redemption. If we want to redeem or even buy a different car during during a Chapter 7.
Yeah. One of the big things I see with people that are in Chapter 7 is they're in a vehicle loan. And because credit score's been poor in the past, they have these really high interest rates, or they've rolled other, negative equity into many loans. And so they come and they have this car that's they owe $20,000 on, and it's probably worth $6,000. And so their options are, one, in a Chapter 7, you can surrender it like we were talking about, and then you wouldn't owe anything on it. Chapter 7 has a unique feature. It's where you can redeem the vehicle. And what that is, it's a process where you can file a motion with the court that says, hey, judge, this vehicle's upside down. It's worth $6,000. I owe $20,000. And the court will enter an order and say, okay, if you pay that $6,000, the rest of it will go away. The other, $14,000 is discharged in your bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. But there's a catch on this one, is that you have to pay that $6,000 all at once. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure everybody's saying, well, I'm in Chapter 7. Where am I going to get $6,000? Or, and there are banks and lenders that actually specialize in these, we call them redemption loans. It's an interesting loan because to qualify for it, you must be in a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. And these loans aren't out of control. They have to be approved by your judge. Mm-hmm. And so the lenders know that they have to be able to show them that it's to your benefit to do this. But I've also had, family members step in and say, hey, we're going to help out, and borrow them the money or gift them the money to be able to pay that off. But it's one of the tools that a lot of people don't use, but it's a really powerful one if you're in a really bad situation with a car loan, but you're not looking to go get a different vehicle. Redeeming the vehicle can be a big help.
And for people that do want to get a different vehicle, right? They have an old car, they're not getting the oil changed, you can surrender. And there's car dealerships and lenders that lend only to people that just filed bankruptcy, right?
Yeah.
Speaking to that as to why, because a lot of people they think you're out of luck to getting a car loan for 5 years or X number of years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we were talking about, surprisingly, the credit increases quickly. And another thing that surprises people all the time, we file the bankruptcy case with the court. Within weeks, clients always say, my mailbox is full of advertisements for credit cards and car loans. And I always say, you know what, they want your business. Sometimes I think it's a little bit of a perverse reasoning in that you can't file bankruptcy and get a discharge again for 8 years. Yeah. And they know that. So they know that, and they also think, well, you're also shedding a lot of debt, so your disposable income will be better. Mm-hmm. But you'd be surprised, a lot of people, if they go out to even just regular dealerships, I always say, ask them up front, just let them know, hey, I just did a bankruptcy. Yeah. It's been discharged for 3 months or whatever, but I need a car loan. Do you guys have any programs? And I have been surprised how many dealerships do have financing programs or work with lenders that have these programs to be able to make it work for people in loans that, they're not going to be perfect, but they're also not going to be some of these 25% interest loans you see at some of these places that you're dealing with anyway. So it is possible to get those loans. You might have to look around a little bit more, but even early on, you can get them.
A lot of people think when I'm filing bankruptcy, obviously you don't have money. You got collection agencies calling you like crazy. Talk about how people pay for a Chapter 7, because you don't have to come in with $2,000 or $2,500. Like you can pay it over time and start the protection immediately. Can you talk about what you do in your office in Arizona, but more importantly, this is mirrored in every state in the country by consumer attorneys?
Yeah, so the rules to paying legal fees have changed significantly in the bankruptcy world over probably the last 5 to 10 years. It used to be early on in my career when I was filing bankruptcies, all the courts nationwide required that people pay in full upfront before we could file the case. I always called it the bankruptcy paradox. People are at their worst financial time and we're like, hey, do you have a few grand to throw to court fees and filing, all this kind of stuff? And it just didn't make sense. So the courts have allowed in most jurisdictions. There are some districts that do not allow it throughout the country, but in Arizona, where I practice, they allow it where we can file a case with no money down. You just have to usually pay the court filing fee, which right now is $338. Right. And then the fees can be paid in monthly payments after the bankruptcy case is filed. Mm-hmm. So I have found that shift, at least here in Arizona, with the way the courts handle that it allows a lot more people to get that relief that they truly need, because it's not something where they're like, okay, I need this filed quickly. Right. and now I got to find either borrow from family or we've got to wait another 6 months while I save all this up. We can get the case filed, get the automatic stay in place, and get the relief that they're looking for a lot quicker.
Well, and the best part about that, so someone comes in and they pay $338 and they pay $100 or $150 every other week or $200 a month or whatever that is based
Yeah.
on their needs, but they're not paying their credit cards anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like they all of a sudden, all the debt that have been like pounding them and hammering them down, they don't have to pay, right? Obviously, you still pay your home payment, right?
Yeah.
You have to still pay rent and like your car, your secured assets, but there's a lot you're not paying. So you're freeing up all that money to pay for the bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So that's a huge win of Chapter 7. Huge win of Chapter 7. Well, actually, for all bankruptcies.
Yeah. I can tell you, people would be surprised how many of my bankruptcy clients are completely current on their credit cards. But I also see they're paying monthly minimums of 3,000 plus, $3,000 a month, but they're terrified to let those things, to not make the payments up. So they're completely current on them. And I tell them, look, once you've retained my office, once you're ready to file your case, stop making those payments. And surprisingly, it actually could cause some problems if you pay a bunch of money to your creditors right prior to filing. So I say, just let's stop, let's get the case filed. And so the relief is almost immediate because all of a sudden the weight of all those payments you were making, and like you were saying, I always say, if you want to keep it, keep paying it. You want to keep your house, keep paying it. Keep your car, keep paying it. Pay your utilities, all that.
Yeah.
But the unsecured credit cards, personal notes, those things, right when you file the case, can stop.
Well, and a good point. Maybe you have a car and you don't want to keep that car. Stop paying that. They're going to come pick it up. They're going to repossess it, and that's okay. And sometimes the car is so underwater that they don't even repossess it, right? I've heard that story before, right? Like they don't even come pick it up.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've had that multiple times where we're begging the bank, come get this, we'll take it to you, and we get crickets. So
I mean, it's like, it's hilarious. It just shows you how much that bank had made on that car for them to make so much an interest rate and choose not to pick it up. They should have never sold that car should have been impounded. Right. I mean, it's just it's a lie. And the whole thing about going to your clients that have like $3,000 minimum payments, they're believing the lies of like, oh, I got to keep my credit up. I got to keep it up. No, you get rid of all your debt. And in 12 to 24 months, your credit score is going to be 720 plus.
Well, I was before we wrap up, I just want to say, that's probably one of the number one things people tell me is I should have done this a long time ago. A lot of people struggle. I mean, I would say no one wants to file a bankruptcy case, but there are certain times where it makes sense. And I say, you want to think of a really scary world. Think of a world where there was no bankruptcy laws and you couldn't get the relief you needed when you needed it. That if you get in, get out, you will improve, and this thing will be in the rearview mirror, and you'll be happy you did.